The State of Insights, November 2024. So this presentation's in two parts. The first is the feedback on the NewMR Insights Optimism study, and then some thoughts on the wider picture. So the optimism study. The current wave was in field 30th October to the 15th of November. So this is really new data. We've got three previous waves, two last year, one earlier this year, that we can have a look at. Just a quick heads up to who we're talking to. More than half the people we're talking to, about 2/3, working in research and consultancies and supplier side. We've got about 10, 12% in the suppliers, a little bit more than that, 14, 15% are research buyers. And then we have a smattering of other types of people, which broadly reflects the headcount in our industry. In terms of regions, it's a little bit more biased towards Europe. In terms of dollar spend, you'd like the USA to be a little bit bigger, but actually the headcount in Europe is a bit higher. Broadly speaking, it's somewhere in the region of where the dollars and the people actually are accounted for around the world. So very little change. If we put our strong glasses on, we might look at the differences and we might say that November 24 looked a little bit less positive, particularly if we take optimistic. It had gone up from June last year to September. It went up from September to March, and it's back to where it was in the first one. Statistically, there is nothing in there that you're going to want to hold your hat on, even at the 80% level. So we're talking about a relatively stable picture. Let's see in the next wave whether or not that hint of a decline really is a decline. Overwhelmingly, we're optimistic as an industry, but there are always 10, 11, 12, 13% of people who are not optimistic. So even when there are companies who are doing well, there will be some companies who are doing badly. Even when there are companies who are doing well, there will be some teams within that company that are not doing well. And we should always bear that in mind. Looking at it just at the net optimism level, again, we get this hint that maybe the increase has stopped in terms of net optimism. We do see that research buyers and people in the APAC region tend to be more optimistic, and that the suppliers in North America and Europe tend to be less optimistic. But there's not a massive difference between these groups. My feeling tends to be that people, particularly on the research buyer side, tend to be optimistic if they've got a job, and if they don't have a job, they tend not to get the survey invitation. So we're missing out on the people who've recently lost a job on research buyer side. One of the key questions in this survey is, what are the most positive things in insights in the moment? And it's overwhelmingly AI. In all of the waves that we've done, the three previous waves, it's been the same. And you'll notice synthetic data is a fairly big chunk. So there's a whole bunch of people who think synthetic data is key. If we analyze the text and we put it into themes, and I'm running ResearchWise AI to do this for me, it groups nearly half of all the positive comments relate to AI and technology. And actually, some of those innovation things also relate to AI and technology. Demand for insights are growing. And if we take a typical open-ended comment, it seems to me that more and more organizations are interested in gaining insights. Collaboration and community, quite a lot of comments like this, really encouraging, I feel. More open and camaraderie between colleagues in the industry, sharing best practices and collaboration. That may link to the resurgence of face-to-face conferences, the growth in collaborative webinars, I wonder. The human element, cross-functional teams focusing on humans, both for building empathy, gaining insights, and the continued importance of people with AI assistance. Something I'm seeing at AI events around the world is this real focus on people. People are trying to use AI to understand people better, and that's got to be a good thing. So we also asked people, what are the most worrying things? Remember I said synthetic data was one of the most positives? Yep, it's one of the most worrying. AI is the most worrying thing. AI is the most positive thing. Synthetic data is a pretty positive thing. and it's a quite negative thing. On top of that, we've got things like costs and clients and money and data quality. So when we look at that through themes, taking all those open-ended comments, 288 open-ended comments, over-reliance on AI is the biggest issue that people are worried about. Then shrinking budgets for traditional full-service research. So there is this hunger amongst clients for more insights, for new ways of solving things, but also some indication that traditional full service methods of solving it are suffering in that mix. We see this that it's categorized as inexperienced practitioners. The use of AI by non-researchers or by inexperienced researchers and irresponsible use of AI from a data privacy and research integrity. This is a significant concern, nearly 1 in 5 people. Data quality, particularly survey respondent quality. This has been a theme now for 2 or 3 years. We see things like the Global Data Quality Initiative trying to tackle it. And we just heard from one of the users of the CATI system a moment ago that the negative experience they've received from using online panels and why they're using CATI. An industry fragmentation, a growing number of competitors from outside the industry claiming they can deliver insights better and cheaper than the market research can. So these are the sorts of things that people are worried about. We also ask people, what sort of training, learning are you looking for? And over the last 5 or 10 years that I've been running similar surveys, I have never seen storytelling and communication so low. It's dropped way back down on the league. And what we're seeing overwhelmingly is AI training. And I certainly know from my side that I've been in really big demand with a wide range of organizations, and I know other people are too, running AI courses. People see the need to upskill in this area. Then we ask people, what sort of AI have you been using in 2024? And you can see that we see a lot of ChatGPT. And if we put that into themes, then yeah, ChatGPT at 42%, Copilot coming through at 8%. So quite a strong difference, 5 times bigger for ChatGPT amongst this sample in an open-ended context. People are using AI for qualitative, they're using it for exploratory things, coding and scripting, transcriptions. So all sorts of things. But what you're not seeing in there is much quant analysis. I'm going to come back to that point in a moment. So the main messages from the survey that we've run: people are optimistic about AI, people are worried about AI, and people want to learn about AI. Most of the conferences I go to, and I'm very lucky, I get to go to a lot of conferences, the largest single topic that's being discussed is artificial intelligence, and the rooms that have the most people in and the webinars that have the most attendees tend to be the ones that talk about artificial intelligence. It is very much the hot topic. Everything else is small by comparison, although that's small in total. It can be vital to some people. For example, the change from one way of doing CATI to another is going to be really important to pollsters, really important to B2B, but it's not changing the big dial of where the Ipsoses and the Cantars and the Unilevers and so on are placing their big bets. So I'm now going to draw the second part, this wider picture. So I'm a big fan of reading Grit. I'm a massive fan of reading SMR's Global Market Research Report. At NewMR, we run a lot of webinars. I've been lucky enough, as I mentioned, to be face-to-face at events, running courses. I look at the insights from the Insights Association, and Mr. Webb is my daily reading. So I'm pulling in strands from all over the place, probably LinkedIn. And I don't have an icon for it, but probably LinkedIn is my single biggest place for hearing conversations, having conversations about what's changing. I've drawn 10 lessons from this wider picture. So the res tech revolution continues. From the SMR data, we know that res tech, technology-enabled research, is now bigger, substantially bigger than conventional market research. By conventional market research, I mean surveys, I mean focus groups, I mean depth interviews. That is now not what is the biggest part of our industry. The biggest part of our industry are the use of automated data collection, tools, bots, all of these sorts of things, social media, scraping, and so on. This is being powered now by AI. So ResTech and the platforms have been growing really, really strongly for 5 or 6 years. But now that growth is all powered by artificial intelligence. We're seeing this shift to self-service or DIY, where for a few years now, we've seen that more than 50% of research projects globally are being conducted by end clients, not by agencies. That has been facilitated by the ResTech, by the platforms, and it's being promoted by the artificial intelligence because it's becoming safer for people with moderate amounts of information and experience to do more and more research. So this is a big trend that's moving on. The English hegemony is growing. So something like 2/3 of all research spending in the world is spent in the English-speaking countries, USA, Canada, Australia, United Kingdom, Ireland, that and a couple of other places accounts for 2/3 of all the money being spent. Quite often in countries where you have a choice of languages, the tendency is towards English for things like B2B. This has a really big impact on the ResTech. If you are creating a brand new tool to do some form of AI moderated ethnography where the tasks were being given to you daily and being fed back, it's cheaper to write that just for English. And you will be just as rich if you only do it in English. Your tool might be rubbish in Bangkok. It might be appalling in Jakarta, but you can make money. And this is causing a problem to the tools and the approaches that we have in our industry. AI is clearly boosting qual, and it's doing it much more than it's changing quant. One of the reasons for that is the key tool that we're looking at the moment are the large language models. Large language models are language models. They're not numerical. You have to leverage something else. So ChatGPT, for example, leverages Python in order to be able to do sums and advanced quant. So we're seeing much more happening in the qual zone with unstructured information than we're seeing in the quant zone. There is good stuff in the quant zone. It's just much bigger in qual. Smart data collection is really growing. So conversational surveys, smart chatbots, all of these sort of things, avatars, smarter IVR, all of this is coming along, making it much smarter. We're also seeing the panel companies using a lot of AI to try to root out fraudulent respondents. Data quality issues remain unresolved. There's been a tremendous effort, and I'd like to pay a lot of respect to the MRS and the Insights Association, SMR, all of these organizations. But the clients I'm talking to, the research companies I'm talking to, are saying they're not seeing a big change. And we've seen some recent writings and comments from people who have left that sort of panel industry talking about some of the problems, and maybe they're not even fixable. And that raises some really interesting questions for us. Synthetic data is massively divisive. There are really strong adherents. There are people who are buying it. There are people who are selling it. They're claiming fantastic results. There are also people who are vitriolic in their dislike and disapproval of it. It is probably the strongest tension issue within our industry at the moment. And that will probably continue through 2025 and 2024. 2025. I'm seeing lots and lots of references to upskilling. I saw it in my study, but I'm seeing it in terms of the attendance. I'm running courses with some associations and they're getting 100 people turning up for the online course. But I'm also seeing other people doing it. In the GRIT survey, there was quite a bit about the upskilling theme. So we can see that there is a real need being perceived by our community to keep the skills moving along with the rate of change. In-person events are back. I've been lucky to attend a whole range of events around the world. The numbers are up, the interactions are up, the passion is up, the quality of presentations is getting better and better. And of course, so many of them are now hybrid. You can log in on LinkedIn or Facebook or some other platform and see the presentations, but it's not as good as being there. And time horizons are shortening. 2026 is going to be very different to 2025. If you're planning to make changes, you need to make sure that the change will pay you dividends, will cut your costs, make you profits in 2025, because those changes will probably need making again in 2026. We are in a hyper-fast changing period, and we need to accommodate that and work with it. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to questions. And we've got one already. What is your response to the needs of AI training? Is there any way we can start the training sessions for AI usage in research? So there is training being organized by the Research Society. There's some training by SMR, Insights Association. I'm going to be doing a session with the Japan Marketing Research Association soon. All of those are doing training, and so that's a good start. There are some things you can do yourself. If you've got a ChatGPT core account, you can ask it to design you a training course and then ask it to design you some test data that you can work on and work through that. But at the moment, you really, really want to be doing that, and ideally with some breadth. So maybe your organization only uses ChatGPT, but it's worth trying to get a good look at Gemini or at Claude or at Copilot. If you only use Copilot at work, yeah, you want to make sure maybe in your personal life you use ChatGPT so that you're seeing different ways of doing things because they have different strengths, and we need to enhance that. So let's see what we've got here. Do we have any idea of the magnitude in which DIY research supported by ResTech is being undertaken by end clients? So there is a biannual survey run by SMR, the Buyers and Users Study. There's a new one going out at the moment, and it finds that about 50% of projects are being conducted internally by clients. The variation is massive. There are clients that are doing close to 100% of their research internally, and there are clients that are doing almost no research internally, depending on their skills, depending on their needs and the tools. The level of complexity of those internal things is going up. Now, I very carefully stressed in terms of numbers of projects, value of research is still predominantly external because the hard stuff, the difficult stuff, the stuff that requires access to different types of people tends to be more expensive, and it tends to be where you go to agencies for. So can I name some of the best end-to-end quant AI tools built on top of the large language models I've seen? Not really, because I will certainly advocate the people who sponsor NewMR, and I will advocate research-wise AI, but I don't want to get in the position of highlighting one, partly from an ethical point of view, but also the best one today will not necessarily be the best one in January. They're moving along quite fast. So another question, I worry, oops, okay, here we are. The screen scrolled for me. I worry about that. Question design from professional questionnaire designers can include bias and leading if it goes unchecked. So what damage are these studies doing to the sample ecosystem? Generally speaking, there are some real problems. If you talk to the panel companies, so many current surveys are being designed by people who work for research companies who are not fully trained and are creating surveys that are not that good. To be absolutely frank, most research projects should not need to invent new questions. We have 50, 60 years of good science on learning how to ask questions. So we should be drawing from libraries for most projects. So that is where the AI tends to have a strength. It tends to go back to the libraries, whereas undertrained humans are more likely to create a double-barreled question, one with a double negative in it, something which is culturally insensitive, and things like that. So I've got a simple exercise I show people where we set up a questionnaire for North America, and it has an ethnicity question in it. I then say, right, would you convert that to using it in France? It removes the ethnicity question because it's illegal to ask ethnic origin in France. AI knows that. A junior researcher on my team might not know that. So, whilst I'm very big on having the human in the loop, the AI in the loop is quite useful too. Are there any data quality tools you can recommend for AI created data and insights? It's not so much tools at the moment. We do not know that how good AI created data. So you absolutely need to be working with the vendors to see what their method is and what are they comparing with. Are they trying to replicate surveys? Are they trying to replicate market outcomes? In terms of insights, then you need to be looking and cross-checking that data back through that. Any thoughts on implications for qual research, balance of human moderation versus AI? I think the big difference we're going to see in qual research is that we are going to be able to work with larger bodies of information. So the AI moderation tools are getting really close to doing a good job about simple sorts of questions. Here are some product designs. Which ones do you like? Why do you like them? How might we change them? We could run those through 500 people, but with qualitative, unstructured questions, and then analyze them in a qualitative way, but using the speed of the computer to analyze them in a qualitative way. That brings things up in a different way. That is also going to be true of using more images. Quite often in the past, when we've asked participants to collect videos of themselves, we've said, please limit them to 20 seconds because it takes us so much time to process the videos. We won't need to do that in the very near future. Companies like Vox Populi would say we already don't need to do that. We could have much longer videos and use the AI to summarize them, to categorize them. We would then look at the categories and the themes to add our level of interpretation to that. Do you have a take on what the trend is relatively to understanding people's emotions in research studies versus just what is said, what is box checked? Quite often there's a lot of good AI tools for working at the emotional level, but you have to set them up to do that. If you take, say, Copilot or ChatGPT and you show them survey responses and say, what do people think about this? They will tell you what people say, and assume that it's what people think. If, on the other hand, you tell it to use narrative analysis, thematic analysis, grounded theory, if you ask it to look at the statements that are likely to be exhibiting bias, it will come a lot closer to that. And if we can show it examples of overclaim, then again, it can work better. But you have to be a lot smarter if you want your AI to try to work with emotions as opposed to simply telling you what people said more quickly. There is a data quality issue on AI. How can we ensure our clients regarding this data quality? What is your thoughts on this? There is definitely a data quality issue. If we are generating it with synthetic data, we would divide that into two. Augmented data, where we're looking at missing data. That is relatively easy to validate, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. Have a look at a live panel to Luna, FairGen, Ipsos, all of these companies, and they can show you quite good side-by-side studies that replicate what survey panels generate. There is a really big question about the quality of what survey panels generate. So are we replicating stuff that's got problems within it? So this is going to be an ongoing concern about quality moving forward. Do you have a take on what the trend is relative to voice and video responses relative to only offering typing in? People have been predicting that voice and video input will be very big in the future for many years. I don't think so. I think that it will get better and better, and I think there will be places where it will be used. But when I look at where people share information, it's very often on the train. It's very often at home with three or four other people there. It's very often in the office. Speaking has got two or three problems. One is it interrupts other people. But two, let's say we're doing a study into hemorrhoid cream. I'm quite happy to type answers to questions about hemorrhoid cream into a screen. I am not going to speak that in front of other people. Also, there are things that are unsayable in society that are quite typable. So I think we will see video, we will see voice, particularly in the context of mobile phones and dialing people up. But I think it will always be a niche within the wider industry. Another question, a slightly wider topic. Do you see the European Accessibility Act as having an impact on our industry next year? It's enforceable from June 25 with heavy fines, possibly for inaccessible content. Many online surveys do not do a good job. I hope that it will have an impact. Along with Pete Comley, when the previous round of accessibility legislation came through, we spent quite a lot of money and time making the surveys that we were offering from virtual surveys in those days accessible. And we were pretty much the only, there were some other people as well, of course, who were offering legally compliant surveys, and nobody anywhere was prosecuted or fined for not being compliant. My suspicion is that the new legislation will not be enforced. I hope I'm wrong. I would like to see it enforced. But I think that we will only see a change in what is offered when it happens. When we see fines happening, when we see court cases. Any free available tools in the market that you recommend for library of research questions? I would pretty much go to ChatGPT or go to Copilot, Gemini, Anthropic, any of those, and ask it to create you a library of questions for CX, customer experience, in pharmaceuticals, and then ask it to do that. And it will generate that. You can then fine tune those manually. Every time you create a study, you could upload that as a background document into whatever platform you're using and saying, I want you to design a questionnaire, but I want you to only use things from the library I've just uploaded unless you think there is a problem. And that's the way around I would do that. So I've created, someone's asking here, I saw your virtual Ray, a customized GPT. Please share where you are now in the development and what you've done in the next milestone. So a custom GPT is where you can upload data and you create your own modification to ChatGPT. So I uploaded several hundred of my blogs, posts, and articles from the last 15 years into ChatGPT, created a virtual Ray. And if you ask it questions, it will say, Ray is likely to give the following answer. And it draws on that information and produces it forward. What I want to do next is, in order to run that, you have to have a GPT account, ChatGPT account, and then it loads it. I would like to make that available on the internet. I would like to get feedback from when my answer seems to be right and wrong, so I can train it with the permission of the people who are asking the questions. And I want to be able to control the balance of ChatGPT's general knowledge base and my base. At the moment, if somebody asks Virtual Ray a question and there is a perfect answer from the information I've uploaded, it does a good job of replicating it. If somebody asks a question like, who's the best person who's ever been on Love Island? I've never seen Love Island. That answer is likely to be 100% from ChatGPT. And I would rather it said, Ray doesn't know very much about that. Ask me a research question. How do we access Virtual Ray through ChatGPT? Let's see if I can get the link, and I'll put this in the chat stream. Virtual Ray. If you go there, then that should run for you. And it's a beta experiment. So in the chat stream, we've got this comment. Do you get to receive the questions that we ask Virtual Ray? No, I don't at the moment. That is kind of one of the milestones that I'm looking to do. I want to create something where, with the permission of the person asking the question, I would get what the question was, what answer Virtual Ray gave, and I would like the rating of somebody's view about whether that was the right answer or not. I think that would be an interesting way of taking it forward. Whilst we're talking about, and I'm completely off topic, so if you want to log off, anybody, please feel free to do so. One of the interesting things I saw in the SMR APAC conference was somebody who was creating deliverables based around custom chat GPTs. So you upload all the data, your analysis and the rest of it, and people can then ask more questions about the data set. So it's changing the nature of deliverables.